Hello and welcome to my film review of Terrifier, the 2016 effort directed by Damien Leone and featuring Art the Clown in his first full-length film, I guess, where he's carrying it entirely by himself. He was previously in the horror anthology All Hallows Eve as a kind of bit part player, kind of popping up throughout the narrative from time to time, but can he carry a full-length horror film entirely by himself? Well, of course he can. That's not to say that I don't have some reservations and problems with this movie, but first let me just tell you a little bit about the plot. There's not much to it. There's some women on their way home after a night out, and they just stop in this cafe for a slice of pizza, and then Art turns up, and it just kind of goes from there, really. It's all fun and games in the beginning, a bit of interplay between the women and Art. Some women find him amusing, another woman finds him creepy, and then a bit later on in this kind of industrial area he accosts them again, and then a full-on game of cat and mouse ensues whereby Art is chasing them into this industrial building. That's pretty much all you need to know. After that it's just completely the horror of this clown chasing these women, all going "ah" as they try and hide, and sometimes he catches up to them and commits bloody murder, and so on and so on. It's 90 minutes. That's basically the plot. It's a slasher movie, but with this kind of weird horror character, the likes of which we've never seen before, in the kind of role that we would normally have a Freddy or a Jason or a Michael Myers type. So is it good? It is good, but what I want to talk about first is the violence in the film. I think what we'll do is, in this review, is start with the negatives and finish on the positive note. I think I'm going to take that way around today. So the violence, if you've never seen this film, you should be warned, it is extremely violent. I mean, it is one of the most violent slasher films I've ever seen. There is one scene in particular, halfway through roughly, which is just awfully vile. One of the most awful acts of violence I've ever seen committed on a woman. Difficult to watch. I had to turn away, and that didn't actually make it any better, because I could just picture what was going on the screen in my mind, so that didn't work. And it was so violent that it kind of affected my watching of the film for about 10-15 minutes afterwards. The 10-15 minutes that followed that scene, I was kind of like, they're a bit of a blur to me, because it took me a little bit of time to recover from that scene. Is it too much? I don't know. I guess it depends on your limits. I mean, my limits are quite high. I mean, there's a scene in All Hallows Eve where Art is just sawing this guy's neck with a hacksaw. Totally fine with that stuff. That's absolutely fine. But what's shown in this film, it really pushes the boundaries. It'll be too much for some people. I can't see this movie or this franchise ever being sort of, a big commercial thing that, shows in cinemas and things, because it's just so violent. So bear that in mind if you're watching this review and you've never seen the film before. You need to prepare yourself. It does go extremely far in what it shows, and definitely do not watch this film with your girlfriend or your wife, because you might be getting divorced or dumped or whatever. This is one for watching by yourself, or with some mates, some like-minded friends maybe. So yeah, I mean, on the whole, apart from that one scene, the violence isn't too bad. It's just your standard stuff. It's still pretty heavy throughout most of the film, but there's only that one bit that goes really too far. There's another bit later on that's close, but yeah, on the whole, it's just something to watch out for. It's extremely violent. Another downside with the film, I guess, would be the characters. Apart from Art himself, who's brilliant, the actual protagonists are just not particularly exciting or interesting. They've not been written too well. There's just nothing to them. They're just a bunch of women going running around, and I think it says a lot that the female character I actually found the most engaging was the one who was the most drunk and was just a bit all over the place at the start of the film. At least she was entertaining. The more sensible women in the film, who sort of regard Art a little bit more suspiciously, and they're a bit more alert to the situation, I just didn't find them that compelling. And when it came down to the chase sequences, they still descended into being, they weren't particularly resourceful or clever once it came to defending themselves in the nitty gritty. So, that common sense that they display in the quieter moments didn't really matter as much. So I think if this franchise is going to go on and and become a thing with further sequels, I think that could definitely improve the quality of the characters that Art is appearing in these films with, because the characters we get in this movie are not particularly great at all. There wasn't a single one that I found engaging. It's literally the Art the Clown show, which maybe that's all you need, I don't know. The positives in the film, I think we'll get onto those now. Obviously the first one I'll start with is Art. He's incredible. He's just so watchable. He's so funny. I could just watch any film with him in, and I don't think it would ever get a completely bad rating. You know, he's just brilliantly fun on the screen. He was in All Hallows Eve. He is here. It's just fantastic to watch him work. And I know he goes a little bit too far sometimes. I think he's so deranged in some of the stuff that he does to these people. It doesn't just kill them. He really goes. It's total overkill sometimes. But I guess that's just the character, you know, that's just who he is. You can either like him or lump him, but he's definitely a positive. He's absolutely incredible. I'm not entirely sure that I approve of the direction they took him in at the end of this film. I won't give away what happens, but they take the character in a weird kind of direction just in the last couple of minutes of the movie, right at the end, and I'm kind of like, really? Did you really want to take that route with this? But I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. There is at least one sequel in the pipeline once COVID is done and out of the way. So we'll see what comes with that. The locations are very good in the film. It's mostly a kind of urban industrial area type place. They end up in this warehousey bit that looks quite small at first, but it's one of these magic warehouses that seems to expand as the film goes on, and they're constantly discovering new corridors and rooms and things. But it was a very suitable sort of venue for an Art the Clown film, I think. So yeah, on the whole, I think this is a very good slasher film. You can't take your eyes off it. It's very, well, I did for those 10 seconds of real vileness, but on the whole, it's entertaining, it's good. I can only give it, I would say, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. It's just a little bit over the top at times, but that's just my taste. Somebody else who's got a higher limit of gore than me might just give it a 4.5 or a 5, or think it's like the greatest thing ever. It's well made, it's well written, it's got a great sense of humour. I do think it could improve in some of the characters that Art goes up against, because, you know, it just feels at times like he's flicking these people over in this film as if they're nothing. Put him up against somebody a bit tougher, you know. But I had a good time with the film. I don't think it's as good as the other film that he was in, All Hallows Eve, that horror anthology. It was a better film. I gave that 4 bloody axes, just a little bit more. So I still think that's the definitive Art the Clown film for me. But Terrifier is still good, and you know what? I am totally on board for another one. I would watch it. I would be a little bit sort of peering through my hands at what they'll put on the screen, because I'm sure that they're not going to dial down the violence. I think it's just going to be a part of this series that it is, you know, it's part of its characteristic, and you can, like I said, you can either take it or leave it. But yeah, so there's Terrifier, 3.5, definitely recommended, but you have been warned, it's not for everybody, so you just have to decide for yourself whether it's your sort of thing. Okay, cheerio.